What up? What up? What's up, sports world? It's none other than Blake Anthony of Sports Talk 49, live and always exclusive to you any day of the week, all the time. I'm here with a baller herself, Mr. Gabby Hurlbut. Hurlbut. All right. I said it right. Hurlbut. There.
Correct.
Um,
Yeah.
from Boston Ballin'. She covers all of Boston teams from the Penguins to the Red Sox to the New England Patriots, which we're going to talk about today. And Gabby's been rocking out for many years now. She's got an extensive background, and we're going to make sure you guys know where to find all our content so you can talk. If you got any questions or stuff you want to talk to her about, she's going to be there for you and answer any questions. Gabby, what's up? What you want to talk about?
Yeah. How are you doing today? I really appreciate you inviting me on the show.
Always, you always have a seat here on Sports Talk 49 along with everybody else. It's just always fun to hear different perspectives. I love the fact that women are now taking their stamp and their hold on the NFL world, from coaching to refereeing to doing all different things now in the sports world. And it's just fun to have a different perspective now.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I enjoy a lot about my show, too, is being able to bring a lot of different types of guests on the show to just share their knowledge and their experience and just get different opinions on things going on. So it's been a lot of fun to be able to have that and be able to talk sports with different people because it's really just good to, hear what different people have to say about certain things.
No, absolutely, because different perspectives makes you a better person. Like, I don't know if you want to call, I don't know, you call us podcasters, video journalists, whatever word you want to use these days. I think, I mean, that's just good to open a wide variety of your knowledge. Because, like we said off air, everybody has their thing. That's their thing
Yes.
that they're good at, or the specialty that they have, and I think it's good when you mix and match people up because you may learn something new from somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Or somebody would be like, "Oh, I didn't see it that way," and it's just always interesting to get that type of experience and have those conversations with people.
Tenfold, I agree. So let's get right into it. The New England Patriots. Now, I have my buddy on here, Joey Franchise, big DJ out in this area. He's a Pats fan, and he made me wanted to reach out to you and want to talk Patriots a little bit because it's interesting with them because they've it's kind of fallen by the wayside now since Tom Brady has exited the division. We all know that story, goes to Champa, wins the Super Bowl, blah blah blah, and now he's retired. And now what happens now in that whole division, the New England Patriots? It seems like since the Tom Brady's left that division has now, it's like it's transcended. You got the Jets now with Robert Saleh going over there, putting his hold on that monstrous draft he had last year. But then the quarterback position falls apart. Your quarterback is just not the guy. You're trying to get Aaron Rodgers, which that's like teetering. Do the Jets really want to pull the trigger on that now? And then you got the Bills, and then I mean, what's your take on this now with the moving forward in that division and the Patriots?
Yeah, it's definitely been a little frustrating ever since Brady left with the Patriots because it was almost like they were unsure what direction they should go in. Are they going to do a full rebuild and commit to a full rebuild, or are they going to try to just get some new pieces in that have experience and hope that they can kind of throw people together and make it work? And I think when they drafted Mac Jones, their idea was, this is our guy. He's going to be our guy for the future. Obviously they tried it with Cam Newton. That didn't work. And then obviously I think Cam Newton was going to be a temporary solution anyway. I don't think they brought him in with the intention of having it be a long-term thing. He was I saw him as more of a bridge quarterback until they found a more permanent solution. And, obviously they draft Mac Jones, and that sets a message with how early they drafted him that is their guy that they're planning to commit to for the future. And then the question became, how are they going to do that? Do they just kind of say, okay, we have our new franchise quarterback now that is Mac Jones, and are we going to build pieces around him and kind of start over, or do we want to get some experienced players in here to see who he can work with? And I think that they were doing a little bit of a mix of the two and trying to, they went out, they spent a lot of money on it. We're supposed to be high end, tight ends to help the situation. They drafted some linemen. They tried to, I think, kind of create a mix of, we don't want to do a full rebuild, but we want to also make sure that our quarterback is supported enough. And then, when it comes to Mac, I think he personally, hasn't done enough to show that he's the guy yet, but I also don't think it's fair to say he's not, just because of the situation that he's been put in. Obviously, with Matt Patricia doing the play calling last year, that just did not work. I don't know why they even put him in that position in the first place, because that screamed disaster to me to begin with. And the offense was an absolute mess last year. And it was tough because they had, a really good defense. They had a really solid defense last year that was playoff caliber, but they didn't have the offense to go with that and support that. And that's what was tough to see. And I feel like some of the play calling that Patricia did, it was like, so many screen plays and like just let Mac throw the ball. And it was almost like his whole career so far with the Patriots, Mac has kind of been put on a tight leash, and it seems like they are afraid to let him really move the ball and be creative on offense. And I think that's been frustrating to him. I know something came out recently that the players were torn in the locker room between him and Bailey Zappi during the season, because Zappi obviously stepped in when Mac was injured, and he looked pretty good, and the offense seemed to, move pretty smoothly when he was in the game, and it seemed like they were more in sync almost as a whole offensive unit. So the question for me then became, because they saw that, are they going to change their mind about Mac and roll with him as the guy? But they didn't do that. They put Mac back in when he was able to play again. And I think there are certain mistakes that Mac makes. I think some of his decision making in games is a little bit questionable. But I think now that Bill O'Brien is in to really run the offense, I am curious to see how that elevates Mac. And also from a weapons standpoint, I don't think Mac really had the appropriate weapons needed to be able to be successful either. The Patriots always have, for a long time now, had a problem with having good quality receivers on the team. They haven't had a true wide receiver one in a long time. And I think that is a huge problem. I think, when they signed Devontae Parker, they were trying to hope that he could be a wide receiver one, but I never was convinced of that. I was like, he can be a solid number two, but they don't really have a true wide receiver one. I still don't think they have that. They signed Juju. Obviously, he's still not a wide receiver one in my eyes. I still think they need to do more. The question now, though, to me is Mac really the guy? Like, do you want to continue to try to make it work with him? Because obviously this Lamar Jackson stuff is buzzing, and the Patriots are a team that supposedly is in the mix and making calls about Lamar. And the rumor has it that he wants to play for the Patriots. Who knows how true that really is? That's just been buzzing on Twitter. But the question becomes, do they go all in on getting Lamar Jackson? Because obviously they're going to have to offer some pretty good sized pieces for him. So the question then becomes, do they go after him, or do they try to stick with Mac and like build more pieces around him to, make him feel more supported here? Because obviously you can throw Lamar into a lot of different situations, and he's that talented that he could probably make it work. But the question is, do the Patriots feel like they are in a position to do that? I think it's tough because the rest of the division is improving. Obviously, Buffalo still, to me, is the best team in the division, but Miami continues to get better. The Jets are getting better. I mean, the Patriots barely squeaked into third place in that division last year. Like, they were back and forth with the Jets for a lot of the season last year. Obviously, they beat the Jets both times they played them, so that helped with that too. But they were on the brink of finishing last in that division, and I think that's going to be a similar situation this year if they don't do more than they've done already this offseason. So for me, it's just been tough because I'm like, well, what are you actually trying to do? Like, do you want to be a team that can compete for a Super Bowl right now? Or are you trying to figure out how to make your team sustain success for a long time like you did when you had Brady? And obviously a lot of this having to, get new pieces and kind of almost rebuild your team is something that's so just unfamiliar currently to the Patriots and the organization because they had Brady for so long that they didn't really need to do as much. Like every year you knew the Patriots were going to be contenders when they had Brady. Like you knew they were going to be one of those teams that was always in the playoff mix, every single year when you had Brady playing. And obviously from that standpoint, we were spoiled as Patriots fans because, we had Brady for so long and having him as your franchise quarterback for so long and like seeing him win 6 Super Bowls for you and constantly be somebody who's in the playoff mix is a pretty good deal, I'd say. So now we're starting to feel what any other NFL fan felt for the entire time that we did have Brady, which is, is our team even going to be competitive enough to be able to be a playoff team? And so at the I'm at the stance right now where if they want to stick with Mac, they still need to get more to surround him with in order for him to be successful. If they decide that they want to really go all in on Lamar Jackson, then, that I think alone could put them into more of a competitive range with the rest of the division. But the way that I look at it right now, as things stand, I think the Patriots finish last in their division unless they do a little bit more. I do think, I'm optimistic more about the offense now that we don't have Matt Patricia in that role. But the question still is what can Mac do? I think if they do surround Mac with more pieces going into the season and he still is having his struggles, and I think then it becomes clear that he might not be the guy for the future. I'm not ready to pull the plug on him yet though.
Oh, he got so much to digest there, and I think he hit on a lot of good factors. So we'll start with that. But I don't know why you have a defensive guy running your offense.
No idea. I couldn't tell you.
And honestly, you're right. Patriots fans, anybody with half a brain, you kind of got to give Jones a pass and the offense a pass because he should have been calling plays to begin with. You set your quarterback a whole season with that, and you made your offense look pretty bad for a whole year, and it showed finishing third place. Like you said, you're teetering. You rightfully so should have earned the last spot in the division, but you didn't. You finished third. So they rectify that. Go get Bill O'Brien and see what he does with that. You talked about Zappy. I think I put on Twitter during the draft, Zappy was a guy out of Western Kentucky who was a guy who can sling the ball. He's a gunslinger. So running, didn't surprise me when he came in that game and played really well quickly because he's a guy that could do that. I believe none of his receivers were drafted. So it's not like he needed studs to throw to and stuff like that. He just needed a good offensive line and just time to throw the ball, and he could get it there. So I think you guys really have a gem there if you could really work that out and have a offensive-minded coaching, personnel coaches and stuff like that to get him in the progression where he needs to be. Same with Matt Jones because he's going to have somebody nipping at his heels, and I think he's a good guy to do that. I love the running back situation you got back there. Stevens is a guy that I liked coming out of Oklahoma. Didn't play a lot. I said, yo, this kid can ball. I kept saying, this kid can ball. He kept playing behind these other guys. He's got a lot of tread on the tires. He didn't have to run. He didn't get beat up a lot in college. Sure enough, he came out there and proved me right. Played really, really good with you guys very early. But I always look for those guys in the drafts who just got stuck behind the roster because there were guys in front of them. Doesn't mean they can't play. It just means you had guys in front of you, and it ended up working that way. Wide receiver, I'm going to make sure I didn't want to miss this part. Oof. You guys, for some odd reason, cannot draft a decent wide receiver to save your life.
It's weird.
I said, what y'all need to do is get on the horn. Hey, Steelers, can you mind if we borrow your guy that drafts y'all wide receivers? Because I have no clue how y'all constantly draft good wide receivers in and out. You know what the best part is? Y'all don't even overpay them. And you guys find them. Can we borrow one? Can I get one? No, I can't have him, but I just need one. But seriously, you guys always just miss out on you guys just miss out on wide receivers. I have no idea who's the scouting department when it comes to wide receivers. That dude needs to be fired because you just guys miss. We'll see what Thornton does. He played really well early. The injury bug. That is the only thing that with speed guys, they tendency to get injured a lot when the speed guys. I always notice that in life. Guys that are really quick just have tendency to get lingering hamstring injuries, a foot injury, a sprained ankle, or something like that. I don't know what it is, but I would have loved to hear Thornton to get on here today. I was trying to get him on here with us, but it'll be some other time in the future. We'll get together again and bring him on. But we'll see. The story's not done yet with that. And like you said, you brought in the wide receiver out of Miami. Just name slipped my mind, but he was, he's never truly a number one. They just got to find something out of offense. But if a quarterback, if you want to help him, is running the ball and getting the ball to the tight end, I mean, that's always a recipe for success to me. And then not turn the ball over. You're going to have a good defense because Bill Belichick, that's what he's good at. He's good at defenses. That part you ain't got to worry about. You're gonna find talent on defense everywhere, but it's just the offense you got to get together and just transitioning from Tom Brady being spoiled, knowing you're gonna get top tier performance on your offense, and now switching this like, what the hell are we gonna do? But you got, I mean, I always say embrace these moments. I cover like Tampa Bay out here. I cover all teams, but I cover Tampa because I'm in the area. But they're gonna go through a transitional period, and I think this is the fun part where you get to see where your drafting comes in the port and comes being important, picking up key free agents, finding leaders on your team, bringing in up and coming coaches, and you start to see new guys coming into the longevity of your franchise. And I think the Patriots, you guys are just experiencing that right now.
Yeah, and the other thing too that has been tough and frustrating is that Belichick historically is not good at drafting players in general. The draft is just not really his area of expertise. We've seen so many situations where he's drafted guys that had so much hype coming out of college that were actually really good players in college, and then they just don't pan out here, and that's disappointing. And that's another thing for me as to why they need to be more aggressive outside of the draft, because I don't like the idea of them relying on the draft to find talent, because that in the past has not really worked as well for them. And there are other teams and, other GMs who are capable of drafting well, and he's just not. And I've always, for a while when they had Tom Brady, I think a little bit of these issues for him were kind of covered up in terms of we didn't really, think as much about it, because obviously we had Brady and he's the GOAT, and everything was, all like, happy and roses and, all just rainbows like when we had him. So Belichick's weaknesses weren't really as talked about, but him having the GM responsibilities, I think, is now starting to catch up with him. Obviously the guy's a great coach, super knowledgeable about the game, but I've for a while felt like he should be sticking with the coaching responsibilities and being relieved of the GM responsibilities, because that's the side of it that I think he really lacks in. And I think we're really, really starting to see that being shown now with Tom Brady gone and him being forced to, work harder from that aspect of it.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's funny that you bring that up, him being GM part coach. He's a Hall of Fame. I don't think anybody's going to argue that, head coach. But as far as a GM, I think you need to hire a guy to come in there. If you want to take the credit and act like you did, that go for it. But you need to find somebody that can really judge talent, because I think he's good at finding defensive talent, whether it's veterans or whatever it is. But it just seems like, I don't know if you want to call it player development. I don't know, because I mean, even still, if the guy is not going to be a superstar, you should somewhat get some type of production out of him, somewhat, some way, somehow. But yeah, you're seeing a lot of the deficiencies with their draft picks because you don't have Tom Brady there to cover that up, get those wins. They're like, no, they'll be all right. You got Tom Brady, and the division's trash. Now that's not the same. That's why I kind of brought that up earlier. The division's kind of moving forward now that Tom Brady's gone. Like I said, we don't know yet with the Jets and the Packers situation, if that's all going to go through, because that changes perspective totally. Now, what's the Jets going to do? The defense is looking good. The keeps going to keep getting better. And the Bills, are going to be the Bills, but they're always going to be if they're fighting for the division. But drafting is most important. I don't know how far you've gotten into your, who you think the Patriots should draft. I'm not sure if you looked into that. Some people are really big in these mock drafts and stuff. I'm not sure if you really gotten into it. I mean, is there a guy that you personally want to see on the Patriots?
I think, there's definitely a lot of guys that I think makes sense for the Patriots. I think it would make sense to focus on the offensive line first in the draft because I think
Absolutely.
that's an area that is a huge problem. Mac had no protection last year either. That was
And
another
he can't
issue
run.
with him. And it's like, how is he supposed to do anything when he doesn't have the protection from the offensive line? So I think that's another reason why people have to like chill on the Mac hate a little bit too, is because he really had no protection from his O line. So I think that's an area because, Bill likes to draft defensive players early a lot. And again, like you mentioned, I think that's because that's his strength and he feels confident in if there's a certain defensive player that he likes, he doesn't want to miss out on that player by waiting. So then he'll draft that player early. But from judging offensive players, it's a lot harder for him. So I'd like to see them generally improve the O-line in the draft. I don't think they can really draft a receiver that they could consider a true wide receiver one right away. And they've tried this before. And I think obviously, they could draft somebody who can develop into that type of role. But if they want to compete with their division now, they still need to go out and sign somebody else to be a receiver. So I'd really like them to primarily just focus on the offensive line in the earlier rounds of the draft because that was a huge area of concern this past season. And if you want your quarterback to be able to, be mobile at all, you need to have that protection. And that was something too that Mac was forced to feel like he had to make these like split second decisions on offense because, his offensive line just wasn't it. So that is primarily the area that I'm looking to prioritize the most when it comes to the draft. And I think there's other areas, obviously, that you can use more of. But it's really hard to draft, really good quality receivers that can work with the Patriots offense. Because obviously the Patriots have a complex offense and you need to have guys who I feel like have experience that can come in and be able to adapt to that type of offense. And so I don't think that they should use their first pick in the draft on a receiver. I mean, they could, but it's somebody who I don't think would be able to provide the type of value that they need right away to be able to call the receiving core like a done deal right now.
Right, and you talked about. I think that's what the Patriots did in last year's draft, picking up a guy I liked coming out was the Cole Strange out of Chattanooga.
Yeah.
You went there, and then of course you went Taekwon, as we spoke about earlier, wide receiver. Then you went DB twice with Marcus Jones and Jack Jones out of Houston and Arizona State. And then was 2021 draft. You picked Mac Jones. Then you pick Christian Barrymore out of Alabama, and then Ronnie Perkins. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Rondell Stevenson. But I just see a lot of defensive players taken in these drafts, and they're just, I don't know what. Like I said, I don't know what's going on there with the separation of powers are there, but something's got to give eventually because you got to hit on these picks, man. You got to hit on these picks, and as you said, protecting your quarterback and getting to your quarterback are the most important things in this league, and you can do something if you can do those two. And Mac Jones, that's what I wanted to touch in on. We were talking about protection and things like that. That was the only knock really on Jones coming out of the draft, is that his ability to extend plays wasn't, upper echelon with the rest of the guys in the league. It's just so funny that for years you hear the word prototypical quarterback. You hear pocket passer, blah, blah, blah. And now everybody's these guys, well, we need guys that can extend plays. We need guys that can scramble their way out of the pocket and find a receiver downfield. It's watching this league change so much before your eyes. It's just interesting. We were just talking, I mean, not me and you, but I was having a conversation with somebody else about the linebacker position, how you used to have 4-3 outside linebackers. Now your guys are edge rushers. They're called edge rushers now. It's just, you got to watch a lot of transition change from over this. But They definitely got to secure their offensive line. Let Mac Jones cook, run an offense that best suits him, whatever that is, mimicking Alabama's offense while he was there, because he was obviously very successful there. Is why he was drafted the way he was drafted. Yeah,
I
it's just
do think Mac's potential is there. I think he hasn't been able to really fully show what he can do yet. Like I said before, I do think, there are some things he hasn't been able to figure out yet. That's why I'm hoping that if they decide to stick with Mac, that he can show more of those things going into this upcoming season. Because I just don't think ever since he's been here, he's had the appropriate, you know, just scheme to be able to allow him to succeed. And if he's the guy, you need to set the offense up for him to be successful. And another thing I have that's a problem right now with the Patriots is that, just like you said, like the game has evolved and the game's changed over time. And I feel like with Belichick having been in the game for so long, he's a very, very like stuck in his ways type of guy, and he's just like, I'm going to do what's worked for me for all of these years that I've found success doing. And I
so
think these other teams who are hiring, younger coaches who have been more involved with the evolution of the game are able to adapt to those changes and make those
that
changes.
part.
Like I think Saleh was a great hire for the Jets. I think he's
Yep.
somebody who was right in the mix of everything when the game was really starting to change. Obviously these younger talented quarterbacks now, like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, that just to name a few, Joe Burrow, like all these guys, like the way that they approach the game now is so much different than how like Tom Brady approached the game when he was here, or like how Aaron Rodgers plays. And it's like, it's just a whole new almost generation of the game. And I think the way that Belichick does things worked for so long and people couldn't figure it out. But I think now it's almost like that scheme is kind of getting to be old and the game is changing. And so they need to either be willing to adapt to those change, and Belichick needs to be able to, change the way that he does some things, or it might be time for the Patriots to move on and,
Ooh,
get somebody else in. And I think the problem is that like they would never outright fire Belichick with all the success that he's had. That's when it makes sense. They wouldn't do that.
that'd be an uproar.
But, it would be interesting to see how much more successful the Patriots become if he wasn't involved anymore. And I do think his retirement, I do think is approaching at some point. I think obviously, he's trying to become the winningest coach of all time before he retires. So I do think that time is coming. I don't think it's in the next, year or two, but I do think in the relatively near future that time is coming. And I think it's just tough because the Patriots, I almost feel like, are in a situation now where they won't be changing much until he's gone, because he's so like adamant on keeping, the Patriot way that he's always had. And I do think a benefit to Bill O'Brien is that he's been in the Patriots organization before, so he kind of knows, the Patriots system and how they operate and do things. So I think he's somebody who could provide a lot of value. And, I'm sure the offense is going to look a lot different this season. So, that could be the key. Maybe that ends up just being what changes everything. But if they continue to kind of struggle in the way that they've been struggling the last few years, I think it's going to be really telling of, maybe there needs to be a system change or like an organizational change that is going to be a huge adjustment for people.
My co-host with me, who's always with me all the time, Caleb Benani, he played with the Patriots and Tom Brady and those guys on there, and he makes a lot of good points about defensive minded head coaches. Are they winning Super Bowls? It's turned into an offensive league like that. And as we were talking about earlier, you got defensive. Bill Belichick is a defensive coach. That's what he is. He's very good at it. That part will never change. It's just the offense, and is he willing to hand it over? I don't know. I think really losing Josh McDaniels put a hurt piece on you guys, because I honestly thought he would take over the reins for Bill. I always believe that. He's always been there. He knows how it works.
Yeah.
He was just the guy. Then when he turned down I believe it was the Colts' job, which I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to work for that scumbag Ursay either. He turned that job down, and now here he is playing in the Las Vegas Raiders, and now trying to change that franchise around. But I think losing him was a hurt piece. To me, in my opinion, if I'm just I am on the outside looking in. Matt Patricia was never supposed to be the offensive coordinator. I think everybody knew that. And it was just he's like, hey, I could do it because thought they believed that McDaniels would be there and take over that spot for a while. And then you just had to find a guy, and then you bring in Bill O'Brien. But
yeah, I think it surprised the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
When McDaniels took that job with the Raiders. I don't think they expected it, nor were they prepared for it, clearly. And I am 100% with you. I thought that he was going to stay with the Patriots organization and stay in that position and run the offense until Belichick was out the door. And then he would resume head coaching responsibilities for Belichick. And I think that was the plan that the Patriots had in mind, too. And I think, Robert Kraft and everybody involved with the Patriots organization thought that was going to be the plan. And then he accepts the job with the Raiders and he's out. And now they're like, well, what are we supposed to do now? So
can you run the offense? You got this? No, I ain't got it. You got it?
Oh. Yeah, like literally it's like who's gonna run this offense now? So then they were forced to just kind of pick somebody. So I don't think that they had Matt Patricia in mind as the permanent solution by any means. I think it's pretty obvious that he, like you said, was just a bridge guy to run the offense. But they had no idea what they were supposed to do. I think they felt backed into a corner because I think McDaniels just surprised everybody and they didn't know what they were supposed to do. So I'm hoping now, with the Bill O'Brien situation, that we see a different offense this season, because I do believe that if they make some offensive adjustments, they can be a contending team. Like they showed so many glimpses this past season of being a team that could, compete. I think they were not well. They looked like they were poorly coached in a lot of games. There were a lot of issues and mistakes that they made that just looked like just poor football IQ, and that they were just, just poor discipline when they were on the field, just making a lot of stupid mistakes, which were fixable, but they didn't really fix them. But I do believe that, if they can if Bill O'Brien can come in and turn around that offense, I think they can be a competitive team.
Who do you think will be a breakout player for 2023?
Yeah, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson is somebody who was a huge piece last year. I'm really high on him. I think this is going to be an even better season for him. I picked him. I had to do my dad's fantasy draft for him last year because he couldn't do it. And I picked Ramondre Stevenson for his team. And my dad was like, I don't know about this. Like, is he going to even play a lot? And I was like, I think this is going to be a good year for him. And, sure enough, he had a good season. He produced a lot for my dad. I'm really excited to see what he can do this year, because obviously last year he had a pretty good season, but I still think there's even more there. So I'm looking at him to be a super important part of the offense this year. I think he and Mac, have a good connection on the field. I think they seem to be on the same page in a lot of situations. He always knew that he could find Ramondre a lot of times to run the ball. So I'm looking at him as somebody who I think is going to have a huge season this year.
Definitely. As I said earlier, he was a guy I liked coming out when you guys drafted him. I said, yeah, they just got a stud there. He just needs his time to get his legs under him and get acclimated. Because like I said, he's got a lot of talent. He just had other people in front of him.
I think he was a little slept on when he was drafted. I think people weren't really sure the type of talent he actually really had.
Yep, he could catch the ball. I've actually got the Patriots and the Bengals playing right now, so I keep peeking at remembering this game. He's a 3-down back. He can pass block. He can catch passes out the backfield. You just have to put a scheme that's best fit for him, which I think is a zone running scheme. You run him downhill.
Yes.
And like I said, you keep piling up your offensive line, try to take some of your heat off your quarterback if your protection is going to be an issue, and just put your quarterbacks in a winning situation with good down and distances, not third and longs a lot. And you guys traded away Shaq Mason, so gave away one of your linemen who's been there for a long time, and now you got to find somebody to fill them. I mean, it's just good offensive linemen is just something you just can't replace. It's it's very hard to replace them. Especially the tackle positions, because like Caleb tells me all the time, defensive linemen are probably the best athletes on the field. the way these guys are built, 275, 80 pounds, running 4.340s with six packs. Then you got to go backwards trying to block them. It's different when you listen to his perspective. That's probably is difficult trying to do that. But yeah, I've always been a big person on offense and defensive line. Once you get those, I think you can win a lot of games if you have those two components.
Yeah, those positions are so important to winning. Like those are just so valuable. And it was, clear as day that the Patriots didn't have the offensive line to be able to sustain winning last year. And they know that needs to be addressed. I do think his plan seems to be to address a lot of that in the draft this year. But I just hope that they can make those adjustments, because it's not fair to Mac really either. And I could see blatant frustration on his face during a lot of games last year too, that I don't think he feels like he's being supported in the way that he should be supported and being set up for success. Because he was so excited when he got drafted by the Patriots. He was like, I get to play for the Patriots, like such a successful organization, like with so much winning coming behind them. And he worked so hard to learn that playbook at the beginning. And I don't blame him, showed a lot of frustration last year, because I think a lot of things went wrong and he felt like there were things that were not in his control that were going wrong. And he felt like he didn't have enough help. And I think, that has just been a recurring theme with the Patriots. And I think that that's something that if you really value Mac Jones and you want to, have him be your guy for the future, then you need to show him that you have confidence in him. And by doing that, then you get him the pieces that he needs to be successful, and you set up an offense that allows him to be able to be successful. And I don't think they've done that at all in his time here so far.
No, so we're good. There's going to be a lot to look forward to this year, because there's going to be a lot of questions that people want to get answered. First thing before I get you out of here, you did mention Lamar Jackson that's possible if they want to look at him. I don't know. I don't think so. I was actually pretty damn shocked you guys tried it with Cam Newton, but I'm not. If you you don't really have an answer at the quarterback position, you do need a veteran in there with your rookie. I get it. You want to put somebody in there. Cam could sell some tickets, make some plays with his leg, blah, blah, blah. What do you think about that whole, I know it's non-Patriot related, but what do you think about the whole Lamar Jackson situation? I've been writing on Twitter. It's just, me personally, it's just interesting to see that you give guys like Daniel Jones $40 million, whether he's on his way to being a bench or a backup somewhere, and you have a guy who's literally produced since the day he was drafted and won an NFL MVP, regardless of how he's done it. He's won. I mean, ultimately, isn't that what we're doing this for? To win games? I know everybody wants the Super Bowl, but the goal is to constantly and continuously win games. And he's not getting the contract that he wants. So everybody pretty much now is like making him a villain. I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you mentioned Daniel Jones. I'm not high on him. I've never been convinced that he's the guy that can really help
40 million.
Lead the Giants. I think that team looked a lot better last year than they have in a while. I think that was
a good head coach
organizational changes primarily, though, were key to that. One, they got a competent GM in there. They got a really good head coach in there. People who have shown success in being in this sport and know how to win. So I think those were primarily what I credit what the Giants did this past season to. I'm not ready to, say Daniel Jones, because of the season that the Giants had last year, is the guy. I was kind of surprised they gave him that money when they did. Because I don't think he's done enough still to prove himself. I know that there are Giants fans out there that disagree with me on that, and that's fine, but I just don't know if I realistically see him taking them all the way. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, with Lamar, I mean, that Ravens team looked so much different without him. Like, it's obvious that he elevates a team and that he makes a team look really good. And that's the type of quarterback that you want in your organization, is somebody who's versatile, who can do a lot out there on the field, has a really strong and high football IQ, and is aware of what's going on the field, and can make players around you look good, which is what Tom Brady did when he was with the Patriots too. And I feel like Lamar is somebody who you can throw into a situation and trust generally that based on his talent alone that he can be successful. Obviously, if your team has no weapons around him, it'll be more difficult for him to do that. But he's the type of quarterback that you can throw into a team like the Patriots where you do have some talented pieces, and you probably would still need to get him one or two more pieces. But I think, say the Patriots were to make no more moves this offseason and, go into the season with the roster they currently have, you could throw Lamar into that system and feel like he'll already be able to be more successful with what they have now than Mac can be. Because I think just based on what we've seen from him, he's somebody who hasn't regressed so far yet in his
No.
time here. Obviously, he has some injury problems, which is unfortunate, but overall, he's a very talented quarterback. And I think there are a lot of teams out there that could benefit from at least making a call. And I think the Patriots are one of those teams that it would be kind of dumb of them to not at least look into it and make that call to see what it would cost them to get somebody like him, because he's the type of quarterback that you really can feel confident building your team around and you can trust will take you to the playoffs most likely. And so I think it's interesting with him. I think his talent obviously is there. I think he's a well-desired, quarterback, and I do think he ends up getting paid by somebody the money that he deserves to be paid. And I think, I don't know what team that'll be. I don't know how confident I am that the Patriots are really going to want to invest in somebody like him with what they'd have to give up, but I think it'd be stupid of them to at least not make a call on him.
Yeah, you always got to test the waters, dip a toe in, and see what you ain't getting.
Yeah, especially if the Jets, the whole Aaron Rodgers Jets thing, because like obviously it's pretty clear that his plan is to play there. I know they're still not close when it comes to the actual contract details and the money part of it, but that's obviously like his main focus right now is working something out with the Jets. So, skip to say, that works out, skip to that. And like, we have strong quarterbacks in this division all over the place. And it's like the Patriots, like if the Jets do get Aaron Rodgers, I do see them as a pretty significant step above the Patriots. But then if the Patriots were to answer that by getting Lamar Jackson, they could be in a position more where they stay competitive with the division. So, it's definitely, they're in a tough spot because it's how much do you want to trust that Mac is the guy and he just needed more help around him versus saying like, we could really use somebody like Lamar Jackson because I don't know how successful Mac really can be. Like, what is his ceiling? And the problem is we haven't really been able to see Mac's ceiling yet. So that's why it's a really tough situation, I think, for them to be in, because either way, they're taking a gamble, whatever they do, because we haven't really gotten to see Mac's potential yet. But is Mac's potential enough? That's the problem. So I think there's so many different ways they could go about that, but they are not in a great position right now when it comes to the quarterback situation.
Definitely, I agree. I agree with all that. It's going to be interesting to see what people are willing to give up for Lamar. And I think you guys have a lot of defensive talent, and the Ravens love defensive players. I think there's some type of way you guys could finagle maybe something there, but definitely the contract situation, because I know if you trade for him, then you're going to have to talk about the contract deals, because you're obviously not going to want to keep him just for one deal. Are you going to sign him to a 6-year deal, 4-year deal, whatever it is? Because obviously, if you're giving up a boatload of picks, you want to obviously keep this guy on your team because you gave up potential players on your team, and it's everybody's going to watch. Well, okay, what was picked with those picks? Like they kind of did with the what was that, Washington, and they gave up all those picks, to move up in the draft and stuff like that. So
they'd have to be okay with giving up those picks and other already NFL caliber talent. So that's kind of why the Patriots, I think, should at least look into it. But it's going to be a matter of, are they willing to give all of that up to find somebody who can, be successful for years to come now with the Patriots? Or would they rather just try to make it work with Mac and hope that what they're doing to help him ultimately ends up working? And that's obviously going to be Belichick's decision primarily, I think, how he wants to handle that. But it'll be interesting to see what direction they go in there. The Lamar situation is one of the biggest things I'm keeping an eye on as the rest of this offseason progresses, because I'm so curious how that plays out.
Yeah, because it could make a difference depending on where he goes. It could. It's who's desperate enough to make a move for it. But I'm gonna
Yep.
go ahead and say this on record. I think you got your guy in Zappy on the roster already. I just think that guy can get the job done. That guy can
Yeah.
play.
Oh
If
yeah,
he
he
believe,
showed that he can.
I believe he threw for 5,000 yards at Kentucky.
Yeah.
If
Oh
I
yeah.
believe so, and they had a monstrous offensive line out there. So I think you got the guy there. So, but that's up to them and their decisions. Like you said earlier, Belichick, he's the head coach and the GM. So whatever he sees on there, that's obviously what they're going to go to. And I guess we'll just see how it plays out. But Gabby, I'm gonna get you out of here. I appreciate you jumping on with me. Why don't you plug in where you got everything at so everybody can follow your work and know what's going on in your world?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate hopping on here with you. It was a lot of fun. I always enjoy, talking football with other people. So it was a good time. But yeah, I'm on all social media platforms. Gabby_Hurlbut10 on Instagram, Gabby Hurlbut10 on Twitter, Gabby Elizabeth on Facebook. I do live streams of my podcast on my Facebook page and the Boston Balling Facebook page. Boston Balling is on any podcast platform, Google Play, Spotify, Apple, you name it, whatever you listen to podcasts on. You can find Boston Balling. There's also a YouTube channel for it as well. And it has a Twitter page at Boston Balling and an Instagram page at Boston_Balling_podcast. I drop episodes once a week. Typically, I bring a variety of different types of guests on the show that are involved with Boston sports in some way, shape, or form. It's a lot of fun to talk to people who are just as passionate about the teams as me. A lot of good guests on deck, coming up. So especially with, the our winter teams are very, very good in their respective sports right now too. So they've been fun to talk about as well. So definitely check it out. There's a lot to come still. I appreciate everybody who has followed the show and kept up with it, because it's really been cool to kind of see, how it's taken off in the time that it's been in existence. So it's a lot of fun.
Yep, I remember from ground zero, and it's just awesome to see it go so far now. And the thing about this, you just always got to keep learning new things to stay, keep it interesting.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
we'll end this as we always do. I'm Blake Anthony. This is Sports Talk 49. This is Gabby Hurlbut with Boston Ballin'. I don't have an up north accent like that, but
It's okay.
that was my best impression. And we'll end this as we always do. You're the master of everything. What you do with your life, what you do with it is entirely up to you. Thank you, guys. God bless. And as always, fire those cannons.